If we go to the OECD World GDP book, it was at the time of the Mauryans, around that time, and 33% of world GDP used to come from India. You do know that the rupiah comes from rupya, which is another word for silver, and it is mentioned by Kautilya. So basically, rupiah comes from Arthshastr. I think there's a lot we can learn from the past, but I don't like living in the past. I want to bring the past into the present and see how it will help us for the future.
Welcome to Bhakt's.com and welcome to Literature Festival Western Ghats, and it is pleasure to have you on our channel.
It is my pleasure.
Thank you.
And namaskar to all the Bhakts.
Thank you. So as we all know that Bhakt's.com is a channel where we talk about people who are working for Sanatan, Dharm, Hindutva and acclaimed Bharat, and we come to know that you have done a great work being an IRS, then into United Nations, then you have written many books, especially the Urnabhi. So we want to know, our Bhakts first want to know who is Sumedha Ojha.
So thank you very much for calling me on your channel to talk to you about so many issues around Sanatan Dharm, Hindutva, Bharat, everything. We'll talk about it in detail. So I am or was, I wear many hats, so I really don't know how to start describing everything I do. For instance, I'm an ex-bureaucrat. I'm an author, writer, lecturer, a teacher, a student, a podcaster. So the list goes on and on. Anything and everything that I can do in the service of Bharat, I do that. And my focus is the past, because I think there's a lot we can learn from the past. But I don't like living in the past. I want to bring the past into the present and see how it will help us for the future. That is my focus, because Bharat must regain its lost glory. How do we do that? For me, it is through understanding what were the things that we did well. When we were doing much better than this as a society, as an economy, what were we doing well? What is it that we've lost? And is there something we can regain, mix it up with some new things that we may have learned now, and use it to go forward? So I was born in Bihar. I was educated till 12th in Patna. Then I went to Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. Then I went to Delhi School of Economics, again in Delhi University. Then I joined the Civil Services, the Indian Revenue Service in 1992. Worked there for about 18 to 20 years. Then I worked for another 10 years for the United Nations and lived in Geneva. I still live partly in Geneva and partly in India. All this is my professional life. In my authorial life, I write books. So one is my most favorite historical fiction series, which is called Urnabhi. Maybe you can you see this? Yeah, so this one, and there is another sequel to this. So I took a couple of years leave because my husband joined the United Nations. So I took a couple of years leave and went and joined him, and at that time I started researching the Mauryan period to be able to write historical fiction. So that happened, although that's also a very funny story, how it got published. Maybe I'll get time to tell you. But once that happened, I realized that I was learning a lot about Bharat. Because I learned Sanskrit. I started reading our compositions in the original. I started to learn about society 360 degrees. So what was the economy like? What did people eat? What did people wear? What kind of parties did they have? How did they do their puja? What were the temples like? Any question that you ask is relevant for a historical fiction book, because I am writing about the lives of people. So my research became deeper and deeper and deeper. I am now writing the third book of the Urnabhi series, and sometimes I spend about a month in research before I write one small 1 or 2 page description of an event in that story. So that led me to perhaps reconsider what I wanted to do. So when I left the civil services, I wanted to be an author. But as time went by, I realized that I want to be more than an author. I want to be a catalyst for people to rediscover themselves, to rediscover Hindu Dharm, to rediscover the essence of Bharat, to find out who they are and what they can be. One thing that really bothers me is the amount of inaccuracies, myths and lies which are flying around everywhere. So I do a lot of work to try and stop that. Another something very close to my heart is that in 2016, Rolly Books is my publisher. We recreated the Mewad Ramayana. This is the oldest existing Hindu Ramayana in the world, 17th century. And it was done by the Maharanas of Mewad. So we decided to recreate it by translating the Sanskrit into Hindi and reproducing the paintings. So this is a very, very beautiful book. Can't show it over here, but it's just called the Mewad Ramayana and published by Rolly Books in 2016.
Okay.
That was the beginning of, or rather not beginning, that was part of my journey also into the Ramayana. Ramayan and Mahabharat are both there. But for me, I am perhaps more emotionally attached or more religiously attached to the Ramayana than to the Mahabharat. But as far as the Mahabharat is concerned, I find the Bhagavad Gita to be a blueprint of life. Yes.
So first question is, I have heard that you are fluently speaking Sanskrit. So when did this started?
Fluently speaking, no, I wouldn't say that. Actually, speaking is a problem. Reading, writing, all that is not a problem. Speaking is a problem because who do I practice with?
Yes, exactly.
So I started learning it about 10-15 years ago for the simple reason that I wanted to read everything in the original. After that, when I was reading it and taking exams, I finished a graduation and I was going to start my post-graduation. So at the time, my husband and I used to spend half an hour every day trying to speak to each other in Sanskrit.
Okay.
But that didn't last because we live in Geneva in Switzerland and there's nobody else.
Yeah.
So that was a problem, but I am very good at reading.
Okay.
Because that's what I spend most of my time doing. So I am maybe reading the Arthshastr or reading the Gita or reading so many of the other things. But I realized that if I don't learn Sanskrit, then I will forever remain cut off from the main roots and sources of our civilization.
That's true.
So that is why I learned Sanskrit 10-15 years ago. I learned it from, there's a place called the MIT School of Vedic Sciences in Pune.
Okay.
That's where I learnt it from, and my teacher or guru, he himself was educated in the Gurukul system.
Okay.
So he taught it in a very different way, and I've learnt the Arthshastr also, bits of it from him, which is a very different way of learning than just reading something and translating something. Because you have to understand the in-depth meaning of each word with the help of commentaries.
Yes.
And that's a technique in itself. So Sanskrit has been one of my passions. Yes, that is true.
Then Arthshastr, is it coming because your graduation, PG, then IRS, then that is why you chose Arthshastr, or there was different?
No, when I was about 10-12 years old, I don't know who it was, who gave me a little book about the Arthshastr.
Okay.
Now I read that, and since that time, I think my life has followed Arthshastr rather than the other way around. Because of that, I got interested in economics. Then I did my graduation in economics. Then I joined a service which does, Indian Revenue Service, which is also part of taxation, etc.
Yeah.
After that, I researched the Arthshastr in its social and cultural ways, and then I wrote a book on that. So you could say that my life has been revolving around the Arthshastr in a very mystical and magical fashion. Ever since I first read it when I was a child. And even today, much of my work, and I do a lot of work for, say, public finance, for defense, for economics, which is all taken out from the Arthshastr. So a lot of my work still revolves around it. So it is a composition which has been very central to my life and there must be some karmic connection. Otherwise, I don't understand why.
Yeah, that happens. No, I read one book on Arthshastr. I mean, not book. Mr. Radhakrishnan Pillai, Chanakya and you. So there I understood that Arthshastr is not about money or earning money. It's a whole diaspora. It's
like an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
So I always like to call it an encyclopedia of ancient India.
Yeah. So also, I mean, I would like to know from you also, what is your perspective on Arthshastra? I mean, why it is relevant for today and today's youth? Like, I mean, I have this Chanakya New book with me, and whoever says ki I want to do a business, I give him this book. First read it. Then go for a business, because I think that if you are starting a financial business or work, I think it is one of the book that if you read it, I think you will have some better direction. So I also want to know from you, what is really relevance of Arthshastra for today's youth? There are many people, now coming up for doing business, their own startups. How Arthshastra will help them? And where they can refer? I mean, if they want to have a book, like if they refer to your book.
The first part of your question is I will answer. The second one is a bit difficult. Where to refer to a very good version of the Arthshastra? I will just think about it.
And that has to be in English for today's generation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a bit of a problem. Let me think about it. Yeah. But see, the Arthshastra has 15 books or adhikarans. And in that, it tries to describe what we will call a state, a nation, a kingdom. It describes everything in that kingdom in terms of 7 prakritis, in terms of 7 elements. And those 7 elements are a complete description of human reality. It is their material setting, their social setting, their financial setting, their economic setting, any word, any description you can think of. Because what is it? It talks about leadership. When it talks about the king, it talks about leadership. That means the king and the administration. So you learn a lot of leadership lessons. What is the inspiration for what kind of leader should you be? How should you behave as a leader? How will you be an effective leader? So this is good for people in the corporate world. This is good for people in the bureaucratic world. This is good for anyone, anywhere who wants to take on a leadership position. So I myself take a lot of lectures and talks on leadership lessons from the Arthshastra, and that is a really modern problem or a really modern consideration. Everyone wants to take a leading position in wherever they are. So there are, characteristics, psychology, motivations, behavior, everything is very clearly set down. That's one example. Then if you take something like public finance, so there are some elements of taxation given in it. Because taxation, there's a very good budget in the Arthashastra. So it gives you the income side and the expenditure side. On the income side are different kinds of taxes. So that is also absolutely applicable to today. So 1 year I had done this exercise, that I had taken the Indian budget and whatever heads are there in the budget and compared it to the Kautilyan budget. And I'm sure it won't surprise you to know that there was a great concomitance between them. There's a great parallel between them. Only some 2 or 3 things were not there. And what was not there? Charity and expenditure on temples. That is there in the Kautilyan budget. It is not there so clearly in our budget. Another thing that is very much applicable is in the field of defense strategy, military strategy.
How to spend also, how much to spend?
It's not how much to spend, how to act, what to do, how to fight, what's the strategy for defeating your enemies. Then very interestingly and very critically in the field of international relations, what kind of relations to have with your neighbors and those who are far off, everyone. That is the famous Mandal theory. And how to manipulate those relations to your best advantage. There's something called the national interest, which now the government does talk of national interest a lot. Earlier I think that was kind of lost. Today we talk about the national interest, and you can learn about how to uphold the national interest by reading certain chapters of the Arthshastr. And then, there are things like, say, this is an endless topic and endless question, but I will give you one or two more examples.
Yes.
Take the example of the environment. So nowadays we have the concept of nature reserves, and how to take care of, preserve some animals, plants. You know that this was there in the Arthshastr also.
Okay.
So there were elephant reserves, there were horse reserves. Their purpose was to keep them in a healthy situation, healthy population, so that they could also be used by the kingdom. But in so doing, they described how the environment should be treated. Then there are tips for good agriculture.
Okay.
When to sow, how to sow, there's an explanation of the monsoon, how much rain should come, when it should rain. Do you know that rain gauges are described in the Arthshastr?
Okay.
And you should measure the amount of rain, and according to that, irrigation should be done. So the Mauryan Empire, for which the Arthshastr was written, is called a hydraulic empire. A hydraulic empire is one which is based a lot on water. So ancient Egypt is also said to be a hydraulic empire, and the Mauryan period was also a hydraulic empire. So they were experts in the art of irrigation.
Okay.
My next book in this same Urnabhi series is actually going to be on the waters of the Mauryan. So this is another thing that I have taken from the Arthshastr. But I think, I think I've been speaking for 5 minutes and I've told you at least 5, 10, 12 things. And there are so many others.
Yeah, obviously.
I think the point I would like to make is, it can be read because it is not a book which is rooted or fixed in its time. Some of the descriptions of material technology may be, like we don't have chariots now. That may be so, and at that time they didn't have phones. That kind of thing is there.
Yes, of course.
But other than that, the principles which are there in the Arthshastr, most of them can be applied successfully to do all our work better.
Yeah, but there is major change in today's time and Mauryan Empire time is profession wise. Like whenever you hear before Macaulay, India was Sone ki chidiya, and there was no one doing job. Everybody was in a business, and India was completely on business oriented. Neither we were a agrarian society. Agriculture was there, but it is not the only business. We used to do cloth export, different kinds of cloth, then metallurgy, then hundreds of things.
I would like to just correct you a little bit. You are right, but I would like to say that all these things went together. So, for example, during the Mauryan period, what was the basis of its prosperity? And remember, if we go to the OECD World GDP book, it was at the time of the Mauryans, around that time, and 33% of world GDP used to come from India. So that was a time of greatest prosperity for Indians. At the time, there were two things which were at the basis of the Mauryan prosperity. One was very correctly what you're pointing out, trade. Because a lot of things were produced and a lot of things were sold and exchanged, and that was underwritten by huge infrastructure of that time. Many roads were made, waterways were made, and security was provided through the army and through private security arrangements. But agriculture was also very important, because remember, without agriculture there would be no food.
Yes, yes.
And for trading also, a lot of agricultural commodities were also traded. Forest produce, agricultural commodities, textiles, gems and jewelry, animals, stones, these were the things which were traded. So a lot of things have changed, certainly. In fact, today agriculture is not that important for us as it was then.
Yeah, even the attitude has changed. Today everybody wants to do a job. Okay, if you are not doing a job, you will get a job.
You mean the entrepreneurial spirit is
Yes,
less.
it is less.
Right. You're right.
And I mean, somebody, if they understand Arthshastr, I think he would have written mostly about entrepreneurship, business.
Very true. And
not about jobs.
You are right in another way, that at the time the Indian subcontinent was getting settled. So everything was new. Even something like setting up a new city, it's like starting up a new city. So how do you do this city startup? How do you do all these new things that were happening? So you are making a very good point that the whole idea at that time was to do new things, to start new things, to innovate. So yes, that spirit of innovation can be found out from all these aspects that I'm talking about, even in agriculture, because that was a time when agricultural technology was improving. So there was a lot of innovation in agriculture. There was a lot of innovation in finance. For example, you do know that the rupiah comes from rupya, which is another word for silver, and it is mentioned by Kautilya. So basically, rupiah comes from Arthshastr. And who were the first people to actually mint coins and standardize those coins? It was started by the Nandas, but done on a large scale first by the Mauryans. So this was a financial innovation which was unheard of. Remember, we are talking about 2600 to 2800 years ago, when economies and coins were slowly coming into circulation. So this was one of the strokes of genius of Kautilya and Kautilyan finance, the standardization of coins and currency. Because of this, they could encourage trade. So trade needed infrastructure, it needed security, and it needed a fluid system of exchange, and coins provided that. So we can take from the Arthashastra the essence of innovation.
Now again, coming to this job thing, I mean, today's youth motivation is to get a job. Is it right for India, like now we are moving towards a different path, that India wants to become a 5 trillion economy, even higher aspirations than now we are saying that we are again Vishwaguru. We were Vishwaguru, but now it is coming up ki we have to prove it again. Can this job mentality fulfill this aspiration as a nation, or we have to turn largely towards entrepreneurship? And how can that be done? I mean, do we need to inspire youth to leave your jobs and go towards startups, businesses, or government has to play a role to change this mindset and this shift?
So I am with you over there. I think that this thirst and desire only for government jobs is going to take us nowhere. We have to turn towards entrepreneurship. Now with that, there are certain issues and problems. It's not really foolish to think about security in your life. Why do I want a government job? Because it's secure. Because there is no risk. And why do I not want to become an innovator and entrepreneur? Because there's a lot of danger, there's a lot of risk. So how can it be made easy? One, of course, is to create the culture of entrepreneurship and awareness of entrepreneurship amongst the young people. The other is when they actually do it, to give them help and to mitigate the risks. To mitigate those risks, there are some things which can be done. For example, to have a kind of, support system. A support system, something like social security, so that if you fail, you are still able to get some money from somewhere to be able to, eat and drink and live. So this kind of social security is provided by many Western countries. In India, a little bit is happening at the lowest economic level, 10,000 rupees per month, etc., something like that. But say in the country in which I live, Switzerland, there are very high levels of social security. So you do not need to be afraid. If I start a business and I fail, what will happen to me? That is one thing. The second thing that you asked was, should the government do something? The government can and is probably doing something, but I have a more interesting take on this. Community level microcredit or even community level larger amounts of credit is a very effective way of doing it. So there are some studies which show that people whose communities foster entrepreneurship and who are willing to help out their young people to establish businesses and also absorb the losses if those businesses fail, those communities and the young people from those communities do very well in entrepreneurship. So we need government help, we also need community help. And in our own jati pratha, jati vyavastha, this is kind of inbuilt. This is, and you will find some books on this, the positive sides of the caste system. If I remember the name, I'll tell you later. You can put it down in the comment box.
Sure.
Where certain case studies showed the help that the Jati people gave to their own young ones to help them to establish businesses, because over there trust is high and failure is absorbed by the community. So I think the government must step in, banks must step in, but communities can also step in, and some business communities do already have that culture. That culture must be spread, because the risk to a young person in creating a business, the risk of failure has to be mitigated in some way.
Okay.
Otherwise, how will anyone have the courage to be an entrepreneur?
Two obstacles I want to talk about it. First, you have said bank, and another is society. So society is mindset. Like, if I remember when I was in 10th 11th class, we had very bad impression if I have cleared my board and I am getting art side, not a science side.
That's another
It
problem.
was like, you were totally untouchables.
You're a failure.
Yeah, and if you are in science side, you are totally respected. So but now this mindset has changed.
Has it? I don't see it changing much.
Yes, now parents say, okay, whatever you want to do, arts, commerce, whatever, you please take it. Now a little bit it has changed. Similarly, now the same thing coming with jobs. As you finish your graduation, parents, which job you are going, which campus you are doing, which company is hiring you, these are the only questions. Entrepreneurship, even if the child says ki I want to do some business, parents never say, beta, you do a business. And if child says,
for that we have to have a mindset change. You're right.
Yeah.
Society's mindset has to change, and in relation to your earlier question, ideas from the Arthshastr can help in that. And if we have talks, workshops, maybe books written on that, then the rut that the society has got into, that only jobs are good, we can come out of that rut. And maybe we are seeing the first green shoots of that, but even now the risk is very high and many young people don't want to take that risk.
Second thing is, I just want to understand this, being an IRS, government is positive towards having entrepreneurship. They have done this startup drive. They are supporting a lot. Like, as you register, you don't have to give 3 years of experience. A lot of things are settled there. But bank is also a government system, or it's a different, because bank is still behaving like a complete what you say, say.
Yes, but I mean, this is actually
rates,
perhaps
credits.
Out of the scope of my work, because I don't work with banks. But as a general statement, you're right, but think of it from the point of view of banks, because they cannot afford to have non-performing assets. Having said which, there is a problem with banking culture, that they are very cautious. They are over cautious and over bureaucratic, but then they have to be, because they have someone to answer to at the end of the day. But the reform of the banking system is also happening. Certain reforms have happened only last month. So let us hope that some of the banking culture also changes.
Great. It was quite great discussion, ma'am, on Arthshastr, and I think if people read your book, it's in English, so they would get some reference, they would get some understanding ki why Arthshastr is still relevant.
Yes, absolutely. Please read the Arthshastr, R.P. Kangle.
Okay.
From volume 1 to volume 3. That is an easy one, and there's another one by L. Rangarajan.
Okay.
These two translations I trust.
Okay.
Others, don't trust them too much.
Yeah, that validation is important. So at the end, I want you to give our viewers some message what today's youth should do in terms of economic prosperity, or their contribution also adds to Bharat, to making a great nation.
Yes.
So what would be your message?
Today's youth is aspirational. They work really hard. There is an electric energy about India's youth which is not replicated anywhere I go in the world. There's something very special happening here. So I would just ask young people to work hard as they are doing, to have lots of aspirations, but to never forget their roots and never forget their relationships. They are not bigger than money is not bigger than roots, relationships and family. Don't forget your family, don't forget your parents, don't forget your roots, but at the same time work hard. Work hard in a dharmic landscape. In a creation of wealth is also in a dharmic landscape. So Kautilya has said that earth is at the basis of dharma and kam, which means an ethical life, an enjoyable life, all depends on wealth creation. So create wealth, but don't forget your dharma.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Namaskar.